Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today is Jack Kirby Monday, so we're taking a look at Kirby's Fourth World Saga with Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, issue number 139, cover dated July 1971. Right off the bat, this is one of Jack Kirby's weirder concepts incorporating Don Rickles into a comic book. Don't know where he got that idea. I assume he's probably like a super fan and, you know, the idea tickled him a little bit. Maybe it allowed him to write some kind of, you know, Don Rickles-esque roast jokes that are sprinkled throughout the comic. So yeah, he introduces basically a kind of double to Don Rickles called Goody Rickles, who's this gentleman here. Basically, imagine him as maybe some sort of Don Rickles super fan cosplaying as Don Rickles as a superhero. Again, it doesn't really make sense. It's kind of weird, but there's some interesting parts to it in this comic at least. So let's get started. Cover itself, like I said, because of that part there, it's a little weird, but I do feel like this illustration here done in a different medium for sure, and then thrown in almost like a collage, like what Kirby's been doing on past covers and some interior pages on the Fourth World books. Probably done by Jack Kirby, because I do see a huge resemblance to the way he draws feet and squared off boots for shoes. So maybe it's not picking up on the camera, but I can see it here. And I definitely feel like this is Kirby's just more illustrative caricature style that he's doing here. You know, Kirby, when he was doing What The at Marvel, you know, he would exaggerate his style to a more, to have a more comedic effect is what I'm trying to say. And obviously, you know, the visual shorthand he created for comic books, he wouldn't necessarily apply to, like, you know, more illustrative work that he would do on the side. And, you know, he would lean more towards that illustrative line and hatching and stuff. For example, when he does his illustrations of God that you can look up on the internet, probably they've been published in the Kirby Collector. Definitely more illustrative, lots more lots more fine lines, lots more hatching, right? And yeah, DC Office is still ruining the faces of Jimmy Olsen and Superman. I'll try to mention it at every page turn, but it is really annoying. So a character who was introduced real quick at the end of a Jimmy Olsen issue and then not really talked about, kind of almost this is the continuation of that in a weird way, where, you know, the Guardian was introduced real quick in a dynamic shot of him foreshortened coming at us. And now they're going to explain a little bit more that basically he's a clone of the original, who will also kind of become the mentor of the newest generation of the Newsboy Legion, which we met in the past few issues. Love the splash. You know, not a lot going on, but Kirby still makes it interesting. All the Kirby tech and stuff, very cool. Unfortunately, we still got Vinnie Coletta inks as well, but what are you going to do? Not even going to talk, like I said, about those Superman faces. So this new Newsboy Legion, learning that they're going to have a grown-out to help them out and kind of chaperone them, I guess. And now that's basically covered the Guardians' introduction into the story. Super cool shot. I love this splash here. Kirby's not doing the you know, introductory first page splash, then double page splash as consistently as he did for a little while there. I think it's going to be coming back here and there, but, you know, maybe he's decided to use it consistently isn't necessarily always the best route storytelling wise, layout wise. So he's doing things a little bit differently here. So splash page, a bit of storytelling, lots of panels, and then another splash page here, which can be fun as well, right? Kind of the same idea as the double page splash, building momentum, I guess, through the paneling. But yeah, just the extreme angle, the tilted horizon here, I think is great. The Whiz Wagon, right? It's an unfortunate name, but I feel like you know, is it possible that Speed Racer, I'm pretty sure Speed Racer is a Japanese cartoon. I know that, but that it was produced in the 60s. So I feel like sometimes maybe if that had started airing, and most times things from Japan arrived on the West Coast, right? And by this point, Jack Kirby has moved from New York to the West Coast of the United States and California. So maybe he was exposed to Speed Racer on TV and kind of took inspiration from that for the Whiz Wagon. I feel like there's a connection there, although I might be wrong. I love these shots where we're so close. Like, it's kind of like here where the Whiz Wagon's cropped out and Superman's hands are cropped out. Here we're even closer, where most of the Whiz Wagon's already gone past us underneath and Superman's flying above us, right? You know, this is the kind of stuff that Kirby excels at, and the extreme cropping and foreshortening that I love in his storytelling. So out of the scientific complex, past the Outsiders city that was rampaged and destroyed by the Four-Armed Terror, I think it was called. And basically what's going on here, they're making their way back to Metropolis. Great shot of the Whiz Wagon here, this angle, lots of Kirby squiggle and metal sheen in only the way Kirby can do it. And Superman flies off real quick because, you know, we've forgotten the conceit for the last few issues because we've only been exposed to Superman, but he's got to revert back to his alter ego of Clark Kent, which unfortunately again has the redrawn faces, the DC style faces, and these are some of the worst kind of examples of it here. It just takes you out of the story every time. So Kirby, on this page here, introduces one of his, you know, tropes that he brings back, you know, over and over and over throughout his career, the tiny soldier. There's only one here, but obviously usually there's a whole army of them. He does it later in Captain Victory. I can't think of exact examples right now, but there's a whole bunch of times that he's used this trope. So I don't know where this is going to lead. I guess we're going to find out next issue, because this is basically where we leave the Newsboy Legion in this issue. So some have criticized Kirby for kind of spreading himself thin and throwing out a lot of storylines in different directions and never quite coming back with all of them. So maybe this is the kind of stuff they're talking about. We'll see if he's able to, you know, spin back to the Newsboy Legion. So like the example of the Guardian in, you know, the early issues, and then not appearing for a bunch of issues and then coming back here again. It's almost like he's like, oh yeah, I forgot I introduced the Guardian. I better bring him back, right? So I could see where some of that criticism lies with regards to Kirby working at DC. But I feel like he's going to streamline it in the next couple of issues across kind of the whole Fourth World Saga. I've talked about how that happened a little bit in the last New Gods issue I reviewed as well. So I feel like, again, he's going to tighten it up eventually, where you don't have those kind of disparate storylines going on and characters being introduced and coming back way later. Morgan Edge I always find kind of interesting, just because he's that, you know, 70s business villain, I guess is how I describe him, right? He's the typical, he's got the look, he's got the hair, he's got those 70s suits. I like actually the inking treatment that Coletta does on these suits. There was a lady who had a horizontal lined shirt, I think last issue or a few issues past, and it kind of had the same effect where there's no contour or holding line, and I think that works really well and really helps to evoke the texture of the suit. And yeah, just his whole body language and his facial expressions are always very interesting, and it's almost like Kirby's being a little more naturalistic with those, you know, not superhero characters, no powers or anything, just the regular humans, right? Even this tight crop with the hand in the eye, great. And basically he's starting to get stressed out because the secretary's talking about you know, the character introduced on the cover, Goody Rickles, showing up, and there he is. And what a look, like to throw this kind of head on top of a superhero body is just kind of just odd and ridiculous, right? And I will say this, I think this page here shows it really well. I like the body language, again, the naturalistic feel that Kirby can inject into this Goody Rickles character, you know, in his meeting here with Morgan Edge. Just this, I think, is just an awesome bit of body language, right, and facial expression. You know, all of this works really well with Morgan Edge being looking really stiff here. And this panel here I really like. You know, that guy who just, you know, gives you that soft punch on the shoulder, but just a little too hard, right? You know, you're supposed to be a friendly thing, but, you know, clearly he's hit him pretty hard. The cigarette's flying out of his mouth here. And just, you know, small little detail, seeing people smoke in comics is kind of fun. Not that I'm here to encourage anyone from smoking cigarettes, but, you know, some people do. So I've always decried the fact that at a certain point, you know, no one was allowed to smoke in comic books, movies too, right? That's a thing with some movies. Yeah, just love that panel. Just an excellent bit of cartooning there. Here's a good example of that Kirby shadow, squiggle shadow. Love that stuff. It just, and it's so 70s. It just, to me, that's just, the whole look here of this apartment, how that he gets across is just so true to, you know, the 70s decor, this kind of pattern that you would have on walls and paintings, curtains and such, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So Morgan Edge sends Goody Rickles off as a reporter, apparently, to get rid of him, basically, to this site where they found a UFO. And Clark Kent and the Guardian and Olsen just show up a little bit after him. Also, what I'm going to mention about Kirby as a layout artist, right? And very apparent on this page and the next. Multiple characters, but each character is doing something different. Each character is in a different position. Each character has a different facial expression, right? So, you know, in this panel, and this one even more so, there's just lots of different things going on, and everyone doing different things, body language saying different things. You never want two characters in a panel doing the exact same thing unless there's a very, very good reason for it, right? Or at least posed the same. And Kirby is just a master of it all throughout all of these panels. You know, multiple characters, always in different positions, always doing different things, reacting in different ways, different facial expressions, just good stuff all the way throughout. So as weird as the story is with Goody Rickles, you know, the storytelling doesn't suffer at all. And then you get these great shots like this stuff here, right? Where the even here Coletta has to kind of bend to the angular kind of textures that he's given his figures here that really work. It feels like he's maybe softened them up a bit on these two, but not so much here. And this is the kind of stuff, when I talk about Keith Giffen, this is the kind of stuff Keith Giffen does still, even in his modern work, that reminds you of Kirby, right? This is, you know, what people are talking about when Giffen's riffing from Kirby. Always a fan of the Kirby close-up of the, you know, madman, evil guy with big eyes, right? That's another trope he uses a lot. Again, look how non-systematic the Kirby crackle is, right? Just kind of haphazard there. Mike Royer, where are you? Just a quick sequence here to remind the reader that Morgan Edge is definitely not on the side of the good guys, that he's working with Inner Gang and Darkseid, right? So, you know, anytime he's sending Clark Kent off or Goody Rickles off on a mission, it's really with the secret intention of getting rid of them, right? So the Newsboy Legion, tired of being sequestered in the project's laboratory, find a way out with the help of the tiny soldier. Then we're back to Rickles and the Intergang bad guy who, you know, trapped them all, and they're having some dinner here. So it's kind of an odd scene, again, in an odd issue where, you know, you're being forced to eat at gunpoint. And basically what our villain introduces them to the concept of pyrogranulate. And basically what he's saying is you're loaded with it, and it was in the food, and within 24 hours, you're all going to burn up. Instead of just killing them now, he'd rather leave them for 24 hours and I guess give them the chance to survive. It's obviously one of those weird comic booky conceits that you kind of have to go for. And again, the end to a really weird issue, continuing on, obviously, in the next... Oh, fuck. So Intergang bad guy introduces them to the concept of pyrogranulate by, I guess, lighting the table here on fire. And he explains to them that that's what was in the food and they've ingested it. And within 24 hours, all of you, you'll flare up like torches. And then he sends them out and just throws them out on the street. So it's kind of a weird... I've talked about how sometimes I feel like Kirby, getting to the last few pages, sometimes rushes the ending a little bit and has to push the plot forward in just very few panels. So you miss kind of... You feel like you missed some story beats here and there. There could have been more. The story feels rushed, I guess is what I'm saying. And so, you know, rather than shooting them or killing them right off, he's going to give them the chance to maybe find a way out of it in the next 24 hours. So I guess that's a comic book conceit, right? You kind of have to have, or else our heroes are dead and there's not much you can do. So again, just a weird ending to a weird comic, but it does continue in the next issue. So when I review this... comic next, we'll still be hanging around with Goody Rickles and even possibly in that one, Don Rickles. There you go, guys. That's my review of the weirdest comic I've read in a while. Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, issue number 139, July 1971. If you're still watching and you are subscribed to the channel, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. It really helps us out. If you are not subscribed, please do so below. Again, that helps get us out there to other people who are into comic books, just like we are, and helps the channel grow. So everyone out there, thank you so much for watching. Have yourselves an awesome day. King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KingComics.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.
Like! Subscribe!